So today we're going to talk about winning Facebook strategies, but where there's really going to be kind of a focus on the fundamentals, but we're going to go pretty deep into the fundamentals. So first, a quick word about me and my team. I've experience with clients in a couple dozen industries. I've built 4 different marketing agencies over the past 7 years. So even within kind of our current vision of Josh, Meah and Company, and we have a full-time staff of roughly 15, and then we have a stable of contractors who helps us with photography or videography if we need to send people on site. But we also have our own projects we've launched internally, which are still sort of kind of a division of our business. Um, and feel free to, research me a bit more if you'd like. So a bit about the team. So everybody on the team is really kind of a specialist in something different. So whether that's Google ads, Facebook ads, programmatic advertising, video editing, photo editing, website design, copywriting, email marketing, and so on. We're consistently adding to our overall skill sets. And we work with companies that are more established and also, organizations that are more in the startup phase. So here you can just kind of see some examples. University of Maryland School of Medicine obviously is healthcare. Hush Puppies is an e-commerce site. It's also just kind of a general retail brand. And then some startups mentioned at the bottom. Some folks here might know Menagy as participants in HAYVN. So now let's get into Facebook. So why Facebook? I want to present this in the way that marketers think about it, or how I think about it. So the reason why Facebook is because Facebook includes a set of applications that are amongst the most popular anywhere. So Facebook, Instagram, but also WhatsApp, right? So Facebook owns and operates a diversity of applications that have a ton of different demographic and interest-based data points. And that's what makes them so valuable, is that they have so much data on so many people. And then the other side of it is that Facebook arguably has some of the most powerful artificial intelligence technology anywhere. And so when it comes to marketing your business, what that means is you not only have the ability to decide whether you're interested in a certain audience and then segment your audience that way, but you can also even look at your website traffic and then ask Facebook to simply find people who are similar to folks who visit your website, or find people who are similar to folks who are on my email list or who are following me on Instagram. And so there's all of these very powerful tools inside of Facebook that allow you to segment who you reach. And in so doing, you can really create some very powerful campaigns. So the general case for why Facebook is because it has so many people on it. People spend a lot of time on some of their applications, but it's their underlying technology at this point that allow you to be incredibly targeted with how you reach people that creates such a tremendous opportunity for so many organizations. And so let's talk about ads. So when you're putting together ads, there are a few different fundamentals to pay attention to. This is sort of a set of very kind of basic questions, but these basic questions really cover a lot of very important territory. So the first is, who is your customer? If you've talked to any marketer before, if you're in marketing, then you've pondered this question probably pretty extensively. But when you're using Facebook, it's worth really thinking about how deep does that go? What's the age of your customer? What are some of their interests? In what territory are they, from a geographic standpoint? If geography is irrelevant, then, is it important to think about income? So what are some of the characteristics about your customer? And then also, their interests and so on. But really, who are these people? And the more you can really understand the demographic characteristics of your preferred audience, the more you're going to be able to leverage Facebook's tools. And then also, what is the correct offer for the moment? This is a really big deal with Facebook. So seasonality is a very important component of any marketing campaign, in my opinion. So whether you are, running a campaign that is during the holidays or during, tax season, or any number of other things, back to school season, a given, some other kind of maybe federal holiday. There's a lot of different ways to think about the context of a customer. COVID, frankly, has created an immense context that has dramatically changed the ways that businesses ought to position themselves when they run an ad. So the offer that you're putting out in the marketplace, what it is that you're selling, is it correct for the moment? So it's worth reflecting on the context of your customer. so that you can say, if I were to consider my customer in this situation, would my offer really be relating to them? Would it really be empathetic to where they are? And then another basic way to think about ads is just, are you using a problem solution framework? Here's what that means. And I'll actually show you guys some examples. But a problem solution framework is basically saying, uh, so my business, my organization, the things that I put out into the marketplace are good at X. Okay. When is X valuable? So for example, even in the case of HAYVN, right? So Felicia and I have talked extensively about HAYVN, a beautiful co-working space with a fantastic community. So what's a problem that solves? One would be, I would say, the yearning for professional connection, right? And so from the standpoint of being able to put a message out there, if we look at the problem of people lacking a professional connection and really think it through, well, then we can make sure that our language and the photos or videos that we put out there are actually addressing the problem that people have. And so a very fundamental model for running any kind of advertising campaign is simply being clear on the problem and then the solution. If you've figured out those two things, you do have a basic ad. And there's lots of different ways to run that ad, but you do have a basic ad framework that you can use. And you also may have many different problems that your solution is capable of solving. And that's worth thinking about too. And then finally, kind of another sort of rule of thumb here. Are you applying principles of persuasion? So some folks on here might be familiar with psychologist Robert Cialdini's book on persuasion. And there are a few different tenets of persuasion. So reciprocity, scarcity, authority, commitment, consistency, liking, consensus. I invite folks to just sort of read a shorthand article about some of these attributes. And the way that this comes up is, once you've crafted your problem and your solution that you're going to present in your message, introduce some of these principles of persuasion to help people take some kind of action. So, download my free document of some kind. Might be an invitation to trigger reciprocity. If that document is valuable, someone might be more likely to buy something from you. Scarcity. We only have so many spaces left. Authority. These are my qualifications. Healthcare is very popular for this use of technique. Commitment and consistency. You think of yourself like a healthy person. So this is what a healthy person would do, right? If I can convince you that you are a certain way, then you're more likely to want to be like that person. Liking. Have I shown you something that you like? Consensus. Do a lot of people agree that this is fantastic? Also known in advertising as social proof. All of these components can be embedded into any problem solution, ad framework. So think about this in terms of your business, and I think you're likely to find a few different ways to convey your message. Okay, so let's talk about Facebook metrics. So Facebook has a diversity of metrics. So I split these up into a few different categories. Awareness literally has to do with, do people know I'm out there? So reach, impressions, clicks. So reach is, how many people have I reached? Impressions are how many eyeballs. So if I've gotten the same set of eyeballs multiple times because they looked at an ad 3 times, then I have 3 impressions. Clicks, has someone clicked the ad? And then we have performance metrics. Performance metrics are in regard to the efficiency of your campaign. So what's my cost per impression? What's my cost per click? My cost per purchase? When you look at performance, what you're trying to do typically is drive down these costs, because that's going to allow you to have, more of an impact per dollar spent. And then you have metrics related to leads. So cost per lead, cost per email would be some examples of that. So if I have someone sign up to book a meeting with me and it costs me $40 or $50 or $120, whatever that is, or $5, that's a metric I can use to assess, the lead status. And then finally, sales. Total sales is something you can actually capture on Facebook. Return on ad spend is also a very important metric. A lot of businesses aren't able to use that metric because it's normally thought about in terms of, it's kind of thought about as an e-commerce metric. But if you do have something you can sell online, then typically you should have some ability, even if you don't have a true e-commerce site, to potentially track return on ad spend. And I'll actually show you an example on a live dashboard momentarily of a non-traditional business making use of e-commerce type metrics on Facebook. And all of this data is available on the Facebook dashboard, as we'll see momentarily. So we're going to look at a Facebook dashboard that's live in a moment. Obviously, I'm not going to use one. I have to be very sensitive about the data that I share. So I'm going to use sort of a week back in December for a business that's not in conflict with anybody here. And it also has a moderate amount of ad spend so that you can get some sense of how to use the Facebook tools. We're going to look at a few different ad types. We're going to look at reading the dashboard. We're going to look at some Facebook audiences, and we're going to look at what it means to A/B test. So just to define these things. So ad types could be graphics, could be video. The dashboard is going to be the collection of information that Facebook provides in order to give us insight into what's happening in our campaigns. Facebook audiences are going to have to do with the way that we segment how we reach people. And A/B testing has to do with is this better or is this better? Split testing in advertising is what we call it. And in theory, you can actually test A against B, C, D, E, F, and G all at the same time, and you'll see what that means. So I'm going to stop sharing for a second just so I can open up a live dashboard, and then I will reshare. So just give me one moment, and we'll look at a couple things, and then we'll go from there. So, okay. So I'm going to show you guys. Let me see here. I'll share with audio as well. Okay. So can folks see my screen again? Great. So we're looking at here is a James Beard award-winning restaurant out in New Orleans. They do fantastic stuff. I mean, this is where I'd spend my time all the time if I could. I'm in New Jersey, but this is really where I want to be. I want to be enjoying some of the best cocktails by an incredible, really incredible chef and mixologist. So for these guys, this is a restaurant. Now, a restaurant conventionally doesn't have the ability to actually measure return on ad spend. I mean, conventionally, prior to COVID, the way that you would measure ads for a restaurant would be maybe you got someone to sign up on an email list or something along those lines. But we want to push the envelope because so much of what's happening now, especially over the past year, is innovation in the area of digital that allows us to measure more stuff. And so it's worth everybody thinking after I show you how we ran this campaign, if we can measure return on ad spend for a restaurant, through a digital marketing campaign, and think about it like an e-commerce company, what other business can be thought of like this so that we can have metrics that drive our businesses? So this campaign, so this is a little information about the restaurant. They have this landing page through this service called Talk, where people are basically booking reservations in advance. And they're booking these reservations, and then the data is captured about these reservations on the back end of the system, and that allows us to say people booked these amount of prepaid reservations, and we're going to capture this purchase data inside of the Facebook Ads console. So this is a Facebook Ads dashboard. So as mentioned, I wanted to choose an account that had a fairly moderate amount of spend. So this is a week between November 29th and December 5th. So it's just, we're not in, all the way into December holidays, but it's just a good time to try and sell stuff online. Okay. So in this campaign, what you can see here is that we have a lot of different types of aspects of the Facebook dashboard. We've got campaign name, we have budgets, we have results, we have reach, impressions, cost per result, amount spent, link clicks, purchases. All of this data that we just talked about in the presentation. I believe this is recorded, so folks will be able to review this again if they like. So, but we also can see here that we're splitting up the audience in a couple ways. We have warm traffic and we have cold traffic. What's cold traffic? Cold traffic is the audience of people who have never interacted with us before. And there's almost always an opportunity to reach someone who is not familiar with your business yet. And then we have warm traffic. Warm traffic is the audience of people who have interacted with us before. Perhaps they visited our website. Perhaps they went here before and they've looked at information about our business. And so we've separated the way that we're going to reach this traffic on that basis. And just to give you a sense of how granular Facebook can actually go, when I click cold traffic and I go into the individual ad sets, I can see here that there is a wide diversity of campaigns that I'm able to run. So over this time here, you can see that we had data related to campaigns regarding travel, holiday bookings, escape, just the need for relaxation, the spirit of New Orleans, Christmas cocktails, a carousel approach to displaying creative, for material for people who are married, gifts, So there's a lot of different angles that you can take in order to show your material. And then finally, you have some of the ads themselves. Now, we'll look at some ads in a moment, but just to give you a sense of evaluating this campaign. So this campaign is telling us from a data standpoint that over the course of this week, we spent about $1,000, about $1,100. We had about 31 purchases here. In this results column, you can see 9 purchases plus 22. So we had roughly 31 purchases. And we can see here, and this is a very, very important metric, probably the most important metric in my opinion in some respects, is return on ad spend. So what we can see here is that the audience of cold traffic had a return on ad spend of roughly 4.78. That means for every dollar that we spent reaching new people, we earned $4.78 back. And then similarly, if we look at warm traffic, we'll see it's much better. And that's actually to be expected because cold traffic doesn't know you yet, and warm traffic kind of does. So when we look at the warm traffic audience, for every dollar that we spent, we earned back $8.94. That's what that means. And so in aggregate, over the course of that week, for every dollar that we spent, we earned back $5.77. Now, I want to emphasize every business has its own metrics. This is, the set of results for this business over the course of this week. There are better weeks than this. There are also worse weeks than this. And this is also a business in its own industry. So it does not necessarily directly translate to what you're doing, but to understand how campaigns function. So we've got amount spent, and then we've got conversion value. And it looks like I have a comment in chat here. So the question is Talk a part of Facebook? No, and it is only a restaurant focused application, just to clarify there. So this is basically a way to look at your dashboard, and everybody has the same Facebook dashboard. You also have the ability to click customize columns, and really find a lot of different types of data depending on what you're looking for. And then even the stuff that I'm showing you is just kind of scratching the surface of what's possible in Facebook. And to Barbara's question, yes, it can be very good for B2B. It's just important to think through the application of how you would do it. So the same process applies to everybody. What's your offer? What's your audience? And is it relevant to your customer? Have you considered the context? All of these fundamentals go into the ads. And so now let's have a quick look at some actual examples of ads here. So what you can see here is that over the course of that period of time, or I guess kind of an aggregate right now, basically what you can see here is that we're manipulating a series of roughly 105 ads inside this campaign. Now, you don't have to have 105 ads to have a campaign, but I'm just showing you that when you run a campaign in Facebook, this is why people say this feels really complex, because to be honest, there's a lot of opportunity for complexity. You don't have to do everything in a very complex way, but there's a lot of opportunity for it. Let's look at a couple different styles of ads. And I also want to make sure I'm sensitive to the presentation time as well. I'm going to, let's see. Do folks mind if I answer the questions on the fly? Because I think this is a pretty actionable thing. So I'm just going to do that. So from Felicia, so you set up warm and cold leads, or is that within Facebook? So the warm and cold traffic distinction is set up by implementing what's called a Facebook pixel onto a website, and then being able to differentiate between cold and warm. And so anybody who's actually interacted with Facebook in terms of your ads before, whether that's Facebook, Instagram, or third-party applications, they're going to fall into warm. So we choose to segment whether we want ads to show to cold or warm traffic. And there's also other types of traffic as well. Let's see, from Kathy. So are you seeing performance on Facebook trending up or down for any specific clients or industries? Absolutely. It trends differently, not just for different industries, but for different companies. And that's why it's not just about Facebook. It's about an overall marketing vision for the business. Do management costs mirror roughly Google AdWords management costs? It really depends on the nature of a campaign. In some respects, yes. So when we run a campaign on Facebook that's related to, let's say, 500 products for an e-commerce operation, that's going to be similar to when we manage a Google Ads campaign that has 500 products for an e-commerce operation. So in some sense, yes, but sometimes you end up with more creative asset development when it comes to Facebook, because you have more opportunity to utilize a lot of creative material inside of the console. So it really is on a case-by-case basis. It's close, but it really is kind of case by case. Okay. Let's look at a couple different materials here. So let's see over the course of this week, what were some ads that generated uh, some purchases? All right. So, okay. So there's a number of different results here that are interesting to me. One is I can see the total number of purchases, and I can also see the cost per result, right? So if I have a lower cost per result, that's going to be pretty interesting to me. If I have more purchases, that's going to be pretty interesting to me because all of that's going to tell me, valuable things about my campaign. So if we look at the top converter from a purchase standpoint, let's just click edit here, have a look at the actual ad. What we'll see here is that we had this wonderful ad that was doing really well, and it's a very simple ad. So Mr. Hannah, so Hannah is the James Beard Award-winning chef at this restaurant. Mr. Hannah, we'll see you now. Get your tickets to the cocktail hour at Jewel of the South for a unique, exciting, and safe experience. Very simple ad copy. All we're trying to give people is an outlet. That's it. There's a place for you to have fun. There's an experience for you to have inside of a COVID environment. And look, it looks safe. The guy's got a mask on. He looks friendly. This is a way for you to get out. And then you can also see here that, let me click review here. I can maybe make this bigger for everybody. Here we go. That's a little bit easier to see. So we can see this piece of, so we can see this one bit of ad copy. This is a single image, right? I want to note this. This is a single image in a little bit of text. It's all structured in a very particular manner, but it's built this way. And I would like to think that folks who are on this meeting could look at this and say to themselves, could I put together an attractive image and a little bit of language that relates properly to an audience that I'd like to reach and run an ad? I would think yes. Now, you might not get that ad to work as well as you'd like the first time you run it, but you could definitely run a test to see if that would actually work for you. So let's see here. We've got a couple questions. Oh, the screen bigger. Okay. Actually, I didn't see that. I just kind of made it bigger. Okay. So this is an example of a display ad. Now let's have a look at a different type of ad using video. So this is a little video ad. And it uses really a mix of still photography and video. I'll play it a couple times so that people can just sort of get the vibe of the ad. So let's see here. Let's look at the ad copy real quick. So this one is about the spirit of New Orleans. So this is, just reaching out to a local audience, about celebrating the local audience. It's also about providing people with a sense of authenticity. It's a 150-year-old historic bar. All of this is meant to generate intrigue and authority. So let's have a quick look at the video material. Okay, so I wanted to play that twice for a couple of reasons. One, because it looks delicious, and I just really, really love everything about what they do. But two, I wanted to show you how the Facebook ad actually operates. So generally, when you have a little video ad, it's going to automatically restart. That's just how it works on Facebook. So I didn't have to do anything. It's a 17-second ad. It runs, and then it restarts, right? So that's worth just sort of keeping in the back of your mind. So whatever material you put on Facebook, if you can really make your point in a very short, simple manner, it's worth knowing that if it's punchy, people are going to rewatch it. We have seen that people engage with this video ad. They didn't just buy from it. They also enjoyed watching it. They liked commenting on it. And we use this video ad in a few different ways. So let me see here. We've got a question here. Yeah, right. I agree. I know, Kathy. So this is a video ad. And actually, let me see if we can, we're not gonna have time to go into all the different preview functions, But just to kind of give you guys a sense, that's a video ad. We've now looked at a display ad and a video ad. We've had a quick look at the overall Facebook ads console. I've shown you, sort of, some of the complexity that can be baked into even a local marketing campaign, but hopefully you guys are still just also grabbing the fundamentals that I can run an ad, a single display ad, or perhaps I can even, use a little video editor, and we'll talk about that in a second, to put something neat out there and relate to my audience. I want to also be really, honest about this. So it used to be easier to run ads on Facebook. It's gotten more complicated because so many people are spending money on the platform. And so that's honestly a reason why people might say, I tried Facebook before and didn't work for me. Well, it's become, even though it's self-service, it's still really difficult, just because there's so many decision points. But this is what you're looking for as you're making decisions. So in the aggregate, in this week, roughly $1,086 was spent at a return on ad spend of roughly 5.77. So every dollar I spend, I get $5.77 back, meaning I earned $6,271. And that, folks, is a Facebook ads dashboard. And a couple different examples of ads. So I'm going to go back to the original presentation. Let me just look at this question here. Yes. To answer Virginia's question, all these targeting principles are also on Instagram, and the ads themselves will change a little bit if you're running the ads on Instagram, but it's subtle. Okay. So let's do this, and then I'll go back to the original presentation. All right. So that's a walkthrough of the Facebook ads dashboard. If folks haven't seen it before, now you have. So you've seen behind the screen with the Wizard of Oz, and it turns out there's a lot of machine learning, and that's just something that can be used though by anybody. Now let's look at similar presentation on LinkedIn. Perhaps. Let's get through this presentation, but it's a fair question. Okay, so tools for ad creation. So I want to kind of give you guys a couple tools that anybody can use. So one is the Facebook ads library. The Facebook ads library was published after the Russia set of complexities, we'll call them, around the prior election, not the latest one, but the prior one, where Facebook was manipulated by foreign governments in order to display ads. Hopefully this is not viewed as controversial, but in so doing, Facebook decided we have to become more transparent because we don't want people claiming that we have fraud inside of our system. So now we're going to offer anybody the ability to view the ads on our system. So you can actually go to Facebook ads library, type in an organization that you admire or a competitor of yours or something along those lines, and actually get to see some of the ads that are running. That can give you some models around ads that you could put together. Now, just because they're running ads doesn't mean those ads are successful, but there are a lot of talented marketing agencies, a lot of talented marketers, a lot of talented entrepreneurs, businesses, and so on who invest in their creative on Facebook. And while you won't necessarily get their targeting from the Facebook ads library, what you can get is examples of creative assets that people are using. So it's not like cheating on the test, but it is sort of like getting a study guide. And then on the other side here, we have a tool called Canva. So Canva is an easily manipulated design tool. Anybody can use it if you just want to put together some graphics. So in-house, we have our own designers, but you don't have to have your own designers. You can use very attractive templates on Canva in order to put together some really basic, attractive graphics for display ads. So between doing some industry research in regard to Facebook ads and then also checking out Canva, you can begin to put together some materials that you might actually find compelling for your business. And so optimizing your campaign, this will be sort of the last point here. Then we'll open up to even more questions. But if you're optimizing your campaign, and you absolutely have to, almost nobody goes into a Facebook campaign and hits a home run. You don't really get to do that as much anymore because there's just so much competition for everybody's attention right now. So you have to think about, after I get my initial data, even if it looks pretty good, how am I going to make it better? And so here's some things you can do to optimize your campaign. One, what metrics would you like to improve? right? So we looked at a diversity of metrics. I want to reach more people. I want to decrease my cost per click. I want to, get leads more efficiently. I need more sales, right? You can look at these metrics and say to yourself, I need more of that. And then just think about, so what are the things that would help me get that kind of result? And that's part of campaign optimization. How is the context change for your customer, right? We talked about that. The campaigns we were running uh, last January, pre-COVID, were not the same in April when we had, full on lockdowns. And then that's different from, post vaccine news and a lot of other context changing, towards, November and December, right? So the context of your customer is very relevant to consider. I gave one example. Obviously, we all live very complex lives. Context matters. Just kind of think about it. What aspects of the ads can be optimized? We looked at a display ad. We looked at a video ad. You can change the ad copy. You can change the language beneath the ad. You can change the video. You can change the photo. You can also change where that material is going to show, whether it's going to be Facebook, Instagram, whether it's going to be desktop or mobile, or even to some extent, different types of operating systems. What is your optimization cycle? Meaning, how often are you looking to review your ads and possibly refresh them? Internally, we monitor our campaigns daily. Doesn't mean you get to make changes every day, but we like to optimize on a regular cycle because you're almost never going to have a campaign that's always going to work. So the ads that I showed you over time, they declined a little bit throughout the month of December, and then they got better towards the last month of December. And then in January, we did a complete refresh and launched entirely new ads. And now we're evaluating these new ads while also keeping some of the ones that are still working. But we're anticipating that our Facebook ads are not going to be as effective over time because people see the ads a lot. Maybe the context changes. We ran holiday ads. Now the holidays are over. So, but we anticipate we're going to be on a monthly cycle for the campaign that I showed you. And you should think about that in terms of your business. How often am I going to refresh my messaging? And then finally, what is statistical significance? There's a mathematical answer to this, and then there's also a Facebook answer. The Facebook answer to this is probably somewhere around 50 to 100 instances of whatever data you're trying to evaluate. So between 50 and 100 instances of leads or purchases, you're going to learn some information in regard to how Facebook can optimize your audience. So that's a Facebook answer. So if I get 50 to 100 purchases or leads or something like that, then I can start telling Facebook, hey, help me find people who are similar to this. The math answer, I'll leave to the statisticians, but fundamentally, as a rule of thumb, you don't want to have too much of a trigger finger with your Facebook ads because the results you see in the first 24 to 48 hours are not necessarily the results that you're going to see after, you've just had a greater statistical, size, like a sample size. And it's not necessarily the same thing you're going to see after Facebook has been able to optimize a campaign in terms of its using its machine learning tools. Because the more that Facebook runs ads, the better it gets at showing people ads. Okay. And so, folks, I tried to answer some questions in the middle of this, so maybe that makes up for how long it was. I apologize if it was too long, but if you want to talk about, scaling ad campaigns, is something that we do. But most importantly, for the purpose of this meeting, is I hope you found this presentation and content valuable. So hopefully you have a way to think about Facebook ads that you didn't have before. You've been introduced to the console, and I'm happy to, answer questions. So let's see.